Number 5 is the one big beautiful bill. And you know, it's interesting. We have seen for months Democrats in the media trying to demagogue this bill, trying to spread lies about this bill, trying to fearmonger about this bill. I will tell you something the president said Friday night, and multiple of us, including me, said Friday night. This bill has the most conservative victories in it of any piece of legislation I think that has ever passed into law. I don't think that it's hyperbole. There is no other bill that has as many major conservative victories. I'm going to walk through quickly 12 of them. We're going to do this fast, but this is information you cannot get anywhere else. And this segment right now is the reason to listen to Verdict. It's the reason to share it with your friends. It's the reason to post it online. It's the reason to make sure you subscribe, because you can watch CNN all day long. God help you if you do. Your eyes will bleed. You will go insane and run around in circles. But you could watch it all day long and you will not get this information that you're getting right now on Verdict. 12 victories that are in the one big beautiful bill. Victory number 1. We have stopped a $4 trillion tax increase. If we did nothing, on December 31st, the Trump tax cuts would disappear, and every American taxpayer, your taxes would go up
significantly.
$4 trillion.
Yeah.
Every taxpayer. And by the way, the Democrats wanted your taxes to go up. To stop a $4 trillion tax increase is a massive victory. That's victory 1 in the one big beautiful bill. Victory 2, we enacted new tax cuts. No tax on tips.
Yep.
That's my legislation. I drafted it. It is in this bill. That means if you're a waiter or a waitress, if you're a bartender, if you're a barber or a hairstylist, if you work at a nail salon, if you're a taxi cab driver or an Uber driver, millions of Americans rely on tips. We're providing real and meaningful tax relief to working Americans. That's in there. No tax on overtime is in there. No tax on Social Security is in there. All 3 of those were President Trump's campaign promises. We delivered on all 3 of those, and working Americans all across Texas and all across this country will see the benefits of those major tax cuts.
That's huge. I mean, it's just huge. When you think about that and you think about the promise and how it was, you know, you look at the president. I go back to the campaign.
Yeah.
And he came out and he was in Vegas and he was like, hey, we shouldn't be taxing people that are working their tails off in the tips and everything else. And then the left actually came out and immediately started attacking him for this, saying it'll never happen. This is not a good idea.
Yeah, they did say it'll never happen.
Yeah.
They said it's an empty promise.
Yep.
By the way, I've told the story of where he came up with the idea of no tax on tips. He was the day of his Vegas rally. He was having lunch in Vegas. He said there was a waitress who came up to him, was serving him lunch, and Trump being Trump, he told us, he said, she was beautiful. I'm telling you, she was beautiful. And he said she was saying how stressful it was to pay taxes on tips and how complicated it was. And he said he just put out a piece of paper and he wrote on the piece of paper, no tax on tips. He said, what do you think? She says, that sounds great. And he said, I had a rally that afternoon. So I went out to the rally and I said, all right, let's try it out. And he said, no tax on tips.
Place went nuts.
It went nuts. And
Because
I
it's
saw
a tip town. I mean,
Yes.
it is. People make
25% of the workers in Nevada are tipped workers. And so
they rely on it as their income.
Yes, and so I saw it and I said, this is political genius, and I immediately drafted the legislation to make it happen. That is part of one big beautiful bill. Victory 3, securing the border. We mentioned what the president has done by enforcing the law. What we put in one big beautiful bill is $150 billion to secure the border. It is the largest investment in border security in the history of America. It will build the wall. It will complete the wall. We will hire more Border Patrol agents. We will hire more ICE agents. We will build more detention facilities. We will have more detention beds, and we will employ technology, infrared, drones, helicopters. It is, as I said, the biggest investment ever to secure the border. That is in the bill.
One of the things that you mentioned there was technology. It is amazing to see how far behind we've been on technology and how we didn't have the funding for the technology that we knew we needed. That was clearly done on purpose by the prior administration, because if you don't have the technology, then you're behind. The cartels are ahead. The human traffickers are ahead. The people are ahead of you. They held us back on purpose to, again, open the border.
Yes.
So we've been playing catch up, and that's why this money was so important in this bill.
There's another strategic victory, which is every spending bill, the Democrats hold border spending and military spending hostage.
Yep.
What we've done is funded the things that are critical to keeping this country safe, which means the Democrats can't hold it hostage anymore. So there's a tactical advantage going forward on the next budget battle because this $150 billion, we have appropriated it. It is going out the door, and there's not a damn thing Chuck Schumer or AOC can do to stop it. That is valuable.
On the psyche aspect of it, because I do think this is one of the things that is, I'm witnessing a change. Our Border Patrol agents, whether it's Department of Homeland Security, ICE,
yes,
their mentality right now has got to be on a high.
It is like a drowning man about to die, given a life preserver, lifted out, saved. They are able to do their jobs. They're locking up bad
they're
guys.
Fired up.
They're
ready to go to
human
war.
traffickers. They're stopping drug traffickers. Every time I see a Border Patrol agent or an ICE agent, to be honest, half the time we just hug. I mean, the level of they're just like, thank God.
We get to do our job.
Victory number 4. Repaying the states for border security. $13.5 billion, over $10 billion going to Texas. Texas taxpayers spent over $10 billion to secure the border because Joe Biden and the Democrats refused to do so. I helped lead the charge to repay the states. That is in there. That means Texas is getting over $10 billion paid back. That's a huge victory. Victory number 4. Victory number 5. Rebuilding the military. Over $150 billion to support our soldiers, our sailors, our airmen, our Marines, to build new submarines, to build new next-generation fighter jets, to improve our ability to stand up to China, to stand up to our enemies, to combat hypersonics, the next generation of warfare. Look, with the military, often you're fighting the last war. We're going forward, we're going to face 10,000 drone swarms using AI, investing $150 billion to make sure we can defend this nation. There's no responsibility the federal government has that is more important. And by the way, this is the money the Democrats always hold hostage. So we funded it right now. They can no longer touch this hostage because this is done.
Huge.
Victory number 6, the Coast Guard. Now, this is something I'm particularly proud of because, as you know, I'm the chairman of the Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation.
Yep.
The Coast Guard is in our jurisdiction. So I wrote the Coast Guard provision. $24 billion for the Coast Guard. This is the single largest investment in the Coast Guard in the history of the United States of America. To give you a sense of the scope of the order of magnitude, the annual budget of the Coast Guard is about $12 billion. We are spending about 200% of the annual budget on the Coast Guard in investments. And what are we doing? We're buying new ships. We're buying new helicopters. We're buying new physical infrastructure. And critically, we are investing in ice cutters, in polar ice cutters, and Arctic ice cutters. Right now, China is kicking our ass in the Arctic. And the Arctic is critical for national security. Any war, ICBMs are going to come over the Arctic. The Arctic is now, you've got the United States on the Arctic, you've got China playing on the Arctic, you've got Russia playing on the Arctic, and we are losing. This funding will enable us not only to compete to win, and by the way, a huge theme of everything I do in Congress is beat China, beat China, beat China. This investment in the Coast Guard is to beat China in the Arctic. But let me tell you a huge America First benefit for this, which is shipbuilding in America has almost entirely disappeared.
Yeah, and that's scary from a national security standpoint.
It is very scary, but this Coast Guard bill will bring shipbuilding back to America. You look at Galveston, Texas.
Yeah.
There's a huge multi-billion-dollar shipyard that is being built and expanded right now to build these ice cutters. And the problem previously is if you're a private company, you couldn't make the multi-billion-dollar investment because you didn't know where demand was going to come from. Because we have $24 billion appropriated, there is a multi-year stream of buy orders coming from the Coast Guard for these ice cutters. That is going to bring back thousands of jobs, good American jobs, right here building ships to keep America safe. That is in the bill. I'll tell you, when I was in the Hill Country, when I was with the Coast Guardsmen who were rescuing Texans from the floods, every single coastie, every one of them, every man and woman knew exactly about this investment in the Coast Guard. They knew it was the biggest in history, and every one of them said, thank you. This will make a massive difference in our ability to do our job.
I've got a good friend in the Coast Guard, and he said to me the other day about this. He said, the Coast Guard, he's been in for 20-plus years. He said, we've always gotten the hand-me-downs. We get the leftover equipment and the old equipment. That's a lot of their equipment literally come from surplus, from military and other things. He said, this is the first time that we are now like on the cutting edge on our own because of what you just described. He said, not only has morale gone through the roof, we're no longer like the forgotten agency. Like we're kind of like, the fifth wheel of military and government. He's like, now we matter, and it matters for national security as he described it, and I think that's a great point.
That is absolutely right. And by the way, the Coast Guard also does drug interdiction. It does border security.
Exactly.
The Coast Guard is critical for securing our border, and so this investment, having those Coast Guard cutters to stop drug traffickers, stop human traffickers, and also to engage in search and rescue, which is hugely important. That investment is something I care deeply about. And by the way, we're at number 6. I told you I'm going to give you 12 major conservative victories in the One Big Beautiful Bill. We're at 6. I actually want listeners to pause for a second. How many of you could list the first 6 before this podcast? And I just want to make the point. What kind of job does the corporate media do? I'm willing to bet virtually none of our listeners could have listed those first 6 because the news hasn't covered it. And it's why we do this podcast, to give you information so that when you're talking to your friends and your colleagues, you will know what's being accomplished. There's a reason President Trump is so excited about this One Big Beautiful Bill, because it is massive, massive victories for America.
Number 7,
spectrum. Now, spectrum, what is spectrum? Electromagnetic spectrum. It is how we communicate. It's how our cell phones work. It's how Wi-Fi works. It's how satellites work. It's how streaming works. It's all of electronics. Spectrum, the largest holder of spectrum is the United States government. The United States government has vast swaths of spectrum. And under Joe Biden, the United States government stopped making new spectrum available to the private sector. They ended auction authority. It was grotesquely irresponsible. It did massive damage to America. It destroyed jobs in America, and it let China get ahead of America. In this bill, I wrote the legislation that directs the federal government to auction to the private sector 800 megahertz of spectrum for private sector investment. What does that mean? Number one, that will generate in excess of $100 billion of revenue to the federal government.
Wow.
Real money. Now, even in government terms, $100 billion is real money. And listen, you and I are deeply concerned about the deficit and the debt. The entire commerce title that I wrote that had historic investments in Coast Guard and a bunch of other things, I ended up saving over $40 billion, reducing the deficit and the debt by over $40 billion. And the driver was because of Spectrum Auction Authority. We will bring in $100 billion to pay down the debt.
That's incredible.
That's real money, but it's not the biggest piece of this. The biggest piece of this is by auctioning this spectrum off, we will open up billions and billions of dollars of private sector investment. The companies that buy this spectrum are going to invest. It is going to create hundreds of thousands of jobs. That is not an exaggeration. Hundreds of thousands of jobs. And you know what spectrum is all about? Beating China to 6G. I mentioned my consistent theme, beat China. Beat China in the Arctic with the Coast Guard. Beat China to 6G with spectrum. And I got to tell you, 3 months ago, there was nobody in Washington who thought we could get this done. I sat in the office of the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, a good friend of mine. I said, Mike, we're going to do spectrum on the One Big Beautiful Bill. And Mike laughed in my face. He's a good friend, but he
started
there's
laughing. No way.
He said, there's no chance because the Department of Defense and the CIA will fight you. They will stop you. You cannot get it done. We not only got it done when I cut the deal and got it in the bill, President Trump called me the next morning. He said, Ted, this is incredible. This is like, how did you get such an incredible deal? Historic Spectrum Auction Authority producing hundreds of thousands of jobs and beating China to 6G. That's in the bill. Number 8, air traffic control. This bill invests $12.5 billion modernizing our air traffic control to keep your family safer when you fly, to keep my family safer when we fly, to stop using outdated radars, to stop using computers that have floppy disks and little slips of paper. Copper wire, to modernize our air traffic control, a massive investment in keeping the American public safe. This bill, I wrote that portion. That is also in the Commerce title, so I wrote that portion that will fund and improve air traffic control, a huge victory. Number 9, space.
Yep.
This bill has $10 billion for NASA to go to the moon, for the Artemis program, for the Gateway program, to beat China to the moon. China has said they intend to return to the moon by 2030. In my view, if we lose the moon to China, it would be a catastrophic loss. It would be a loss if we woke up in a few years and China was on the moon and China established a base on the moon, which is what they said they intend to do with the Russians.
And they made that very clear. That is the sole intent of going. It's not just to go to the moon. It's to have a base on the moon.
Yes. If they did that and we lost, I think it would be worse than Sputnik, that it would be a national body blow that would crush this country. And look, the moon is critical. Number one, for national security. The moon is the high ground. You look at so much of our national security and so much of our commerce depends on satellites in orbit around the Earth. The moon gives you the high ground. It is very dangerous for us to cede that to China. It is unacceptable for us to cede that to China. But number two, there are massive rare earth minerals on the moon. There are enormous economic advantages. It is current U.S. law that it is the policy of the American government to have a sustained human habitation either on the lunar surface or in cislunar orbit. This investment in beating China to the moon, and by the way, the moon is a stepping stone to Mars. We will go to Mars, but we haven't landed on a celestial body in over 50 years, so we're going to land on the moon first to make sure we know how to do it, and then we're going to go to Mars. This investment, I wrote this investment in there. I will say there was significant resistance. And without getting too much into the sausage making, we won against the resistance. This is in there. It is a massive investment.
And China is going to notice this as well, yeah.
That is exactly right. That's number 9. Number 10, CAFE standards. The standards that mandate you keep having to have higher and higher fuel efficiency on your cars. That's what the Biden administration has used as its tool, as one of its tools, to wage the war on the internal combustion engine, to try to force every car to be electric, is they keep jacking up CAFE standards higher and higher and higher. What does that mean? Number one, it drives up the cost of your cars. You notice cars have gotten a lot more expensive. Trucks have gotten a lot more expensive. Number two, it makes cars less safe. Because one of the ways you get the gas efficiency higher is you replace metal with plastics. You get cheap plastic. Cheap plastic that crumbles in a crash and more people die. In the commerce section of the One Big Beautiful Bill, you know what we did to CAFE standards?
What was that?
Zeroed them out.
Really?
They're gone. So it's actually, and this
so you're telling me that my car, instead of being all plastic, where you have a little fender bender and everything breaks, they could actually go back and say, hey, we're not trying to save weight here. We're trying to actually make safe cars again.
It can be a great American car again, made of steel, tough as hell. And by the way, you want to buy an electric car? Great. That's your choice. You want to buy a hybrid? Great. You want to buy a gas car? Great. It ought to be consumers choosing. And actually, the way we did this, we very much modeled how in 2017 we repealed the individual mandate on Obamacare. So that was a fight I led in 2017, the individual mandate. The way we eliminated it is under the rules of reconciliation, we could not eliminate the legal mandate to buy health insurance, which was the individual mandate under Obamacare. So you know what we did? We made the penalty zero. So you used to be the IRS fines you. If you didn't buy health insurance, the IRS would fine you. It is still the law. You're required to buy health insurance. And if you don't, you will be fined $0.00. We did the same thing to CAFE standards. So they can put their standards out, but the penalty for violating it is zero. And I want to mention, look, this is, again, like PBS and NPR, this has been a conservative battle for 50 years.
And Democrats have been winning for 50 years, unfortunately.
And we got this done. I wrote this portion. It is in the bill. It is zeroed out. And we got this done. And I'm willing to bet fewer than 1% of our listeners even knew we had done it because we won so many victories that this falls all the way down to number 10 on the list.
Incredible. Well done.
The final two.
Yep.
The final two, as you know, are very near and dear to my heart. Number 11 is school choice. In this bill, we passed the single largest and most consequential federal school choice bill in the history of our country. I wrote this provision. Every single American taxpayer can now contribute up to $1,700 a year to a scholarship granting organization in the states and get a dollar-for-dollar credit on their taxes. It means the money is free.
Yeah.
The effect of this is going to be tens of billions of new scholarship money in the states for school choice, for K through 12 school choice. We're going to do a subsequent pod that does a really deep dive because
this is part of your legacy, by the way. This is going to be part of your legacy.
This is the issue I care more about than anything else. I have spent 30 years fighting for it, and we're going to do another pod where we do a very deep dive because there's some aspects of this that I want the listeners to appreciate that are both incredible policy victories, but also massive political victories. We are creating incentives to turn blue states red, to build constituencies of parents and kids who want fantastic education. This is, I told the president, if and when we get this done, you will go down in history as one of the greatest civil rights presidents in our nation's history. Your critics will never acknowledge that.
Yeah, but the reality will be you're going to change poor communities.
The reality is the school choice provision is massive, and it's in the bill. And then the final number 12 are the Trump accounts, the Invest America accounts. Again, I wrote this provision.
This could fundamentally change this country, by the way.
Starting next year, July 4th of next year, the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. Every child in America will have a personal investment account. Every newborn child will have it seeded with $1,000. Parents, family, employers can contribute up to $5,000 a year in a tax advantage account. All of that money is invested in the S&P 500, is invested in the stock market. That enables every kid to enjoy the incredible benefits of compound growth, which will transform our kids. The wealth creation for the next generation of Americans will be utterly transformative. And not only that, this creates a new generation of capitalists as our kids will all be owners of the largest employers in America. These two victories, school choice and personal investment accounts for kids, without exaggeration, Ben, and I've told the president this, I think 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, these will be the two things everyone remembers from this bill. Everything else I listed, 1 through 10, which are massive.
Yeah.
They are conservative victories for the generations. I think 11 and 12 will dwarf 1 and 10 because the difference, we will see trillions of dollars invested in 401ks for kids, in these Trump accounts that will change the future of every one of our kids and make them all have skin in the game in our capitalist society. And school choice is going to literally provide hope and opportunity to millions of kids. We got both of them done. Those are victories, generational victories. And when the president signed it on July 4th, they were victories for all of America.